All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the show. John Henry Soto here, as always. We are excited, George and I, because we are back. We are back full circle, ladies and gentlemen, where it started all, where we should have stayed, where we would have, think about it,
I told
we
you.
would have 5 years experience in this subject. Who knows who we would have interviewed had we stuck with it and just made that our number one platform, right? But
That's the
George
reason
kept
why.
saying, he kept saying, nope, we want to do a show based on the music of Engelbert Humperdinck. And I said no, although I like it, Engelbert.
I got an email from William Shatner saying that the whole reason why he stayed up until his 90s is because he was waiting to be on our show.
Waiting to be on our show. And I just was, I was like, no, I
And
didn't go Otter's Storefront. No, what's the name of the show that we had? I even forgot. Send stars to show your support. Now, this pops up on my page now. I have no idea where you will send stars. I appreciate the support, and if you find stars that you can send us anywhere, I appreciate it. And especially since we are talking about boldly going where no man has gone before, into the stars, this is kind of appropriate. But
that's
I
on
don't know
Facebook.
exactly where. Yeah, that Facebook just automatically pops that up now.
That's weird.
I must have clicked. The show is taking a turn
Already, we just started first 5 minutes and we're already down the tubes.
down the toilet. I must have clicked on something that says to send stars.
Okay.
As you guys can tell, this show is basically just me and George just having a good time, doing what we've done since we were teenagers, since we were kids, having conversations. So, just to give you a little, okay, George, give George a second here. He's trying to catch his breath. We'll
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, then we
making
have.
a large shakalaka. Was I wearing the same shirt there that I?
Yeah, I think you were actually.
Yeah, were right? Yeah. I have like a series of show shirts that I put on.
Show
I don't.
shirts.
Yeah, I call them show shirts.
Okay. Are they
They're all like,
separated in your closet? Like,
yeah, they're in this little section of the closet that I know that's only for the show. That's
okay.
not true. But
All
all
right.
right. So everybody understands what's happening here. Oh God. Um. So in 2026, George and I will be. I'm gonna get a little cheesy and corny as I usually do.
Mm.
We're gonna boldly be going again with another Star Trek themed show. Now we're not gonna leave anything behind as far as like what we talk about. We're gonna still be talking about creativity. We're gonna be talking about life. We're gonna be talking about purpose and culture. We're gonna be asking the big questions that we always ask. Except we're gonna do it through the way we did before, through the lens of starships and captains and the final frontier and these kinds of conversations that we had in the 15 episodes that we did that really brought us to something that we thought was really engaging at the time, um and so we're going to have the same heart, same conversations, and now it's just going to be at warp speed.
Very
um
nice.
Thank you. So one of the things that I wanted to also talk about is why start? Well, what is it? Come on, guys. Seriously, there are people out there like, what? Why Star Trek? What is it with you guys? You guys are grown men. In, like, what is it that you are so? Well, here's the thing: the fact that we're grown men. First of all, the show came out before George and I were even born. That's number one. Number two, the show has grown with us while we were there, while we were growing up and raising our own families, right?
Right.
Number three, it still exists. It's still going. How many things do we know that it's still being created? New content is still being put out. People are brainstorming ideas of how they can take this franchise and branch out into different sectors of storytelling and tell it with the lens of a Star Trek narrative, like from the original series with what Gene Roddenberry's vision and all the other creators that came after Gene. With that foundation, what were the stories? And that this question is still coming up. What are these stories, and why do they keep resonating? Why do they keep coming up? Why are there millions, I should say, millions of people that come out every year for conventions where people go, they meet, they dress up? Why is this such a huge thing? Because it is a phenomenon. It is a phenomenon. And George and I always used it, and this is where this idea for the show came from. Is we've always used it in reference to things that were going on in the world, and how they, even the early shows, had this connection and this sort of awareness of itself, that it knew what was currently happening in the present, in the 60s, right? And it knew that it was important enough to tell these stories of what they would be like in the future, and to kind of envision this type of future. Now, you have to understand that we're looking at the late 60s here, where there was still the civil rights movement was in full peak, and we have here a black, not even a black man, a woman on the bridge of this of the Enterprise, and she's the communicating officer. She's in charge of all the communications. This is a major thing. So Gene knew something. He knew that this would eventually be a norm.
Right.
We also had Sulu, that was of Asian descent. We also had a Russian. Chekhov was Russian. This was at the at the beginning, or sort of like it was really at the beginning of the Cold War.
Right.
This was a major thing. This was the audacity that Gene Roddenberry had to have at this time. You have to understand, he went to a network and said, I want to have this show where it's a spaceship, and on the bridge we have the captain, and we have a alien from a Vulcan planet that's made up. We have a communications officer who's a black woman. We have a couple of ensigns, or we have a couple of navigators that are Zulu. One is Asian descent. The other one is Russian. People are like, wait, what? What are you talking about? How are you going to do that? We just, 20 years prior, or 20, almost 30 years prior to that, we had the year in infamy, the Japanese
the Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor,
Yeah.
right? So that just occurred,
Right.
20-something years, and here we have the Cold War. What's happening here? We have the Civil Rights Movement. Here we have this was a major thing that was, had to take a lot of audacity for somebody to come up and push it through. And the fact that it was even ever made was a miracle in itself, and
Yes.
then that it became, and it kept going. And we're going to talk a little bit about how this show was almost done. And I'm going to turn it over to George in a second, so he can talk a little bit about how that was actually done. But I want to emphasize that when people say, oh, they're doing Star Trek again. No, it's not that we're doing Star Trek again. It's that we've never stopped. We've never stopped. And it's just, we started doing episodes about other things, but we originally started with this because the storytelling of it really relates to everything that's happening today. I can find you episodes, even the stuff that's happening today in the news. I can find you episodes that still are as relevant today as they were 50 years ago. And that's why we still do it, because it is a phenomenon, and it is part of the culture that we have going on this planet. And it also inspired a lot of things that you cannot say that before. Our phones, our flip phones,
That's right.
This that we're doing right now, George and I talking like this wasn't a thing.
That's true.
Nobody was doing this in 1967.
Well, you also have to remember that Gene Roddenberry himself, first of all, was the ultimate creator in terms of, he just had a genius of creativity. Remember, he held regular jobs in the beginning. He was actually a cop for a while, and he but he was always writing. He was always producing stuff. His side gig was really, producing and writing and stuff like that. And then eventually produced a show called The Lieutenant. which had a lot of the actors that eventually ended up in Star Trek. They had, Nichelle Nichols and Leonard Nimoy and many of these actors were in there. So he already had it in his head that he wanted to do shows with very diverse casts.
Right.
And so that was his first thing, and he wanted to tell stories that you like, exactly like you said, that were relevant to what was going on at the time. Now, after The Lieutenant, he pitched, he pitched other things, but it never went anywhere. But then eventually he pitches, wait a minute, maybe I should, instead of doing it, this concept on Earth, maybe I should do the concept in space, which he actually pitched it as, because Westerns were really big back then.
Right.
So, he said, instead of doing a Western like everybody else is doing, I'll do a Western in space. So his whole pitch to Desilu Studios was a wagon train to the stars. So now remember, his wheels are turning. I mean, again, absolute creativity.
Yeah.
And this is how he starts the whole thing, and then starts the writing process and comes up with the first actual pilot of Star Trek, which even prior to Uhura had a woman navigator, but she was also a first officer.
That's right.
So right off the bat in the Cage, you had a woman first officer, which, I mean, you're talking about, this is 1966. And that was like unheard of to have that. And yet he has this, and obviously the Cage, comes out and it airs, and then afterwards they didn't, it never went anywhere. And the thing about it was Desilu, which was Lucille Ball's, Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball's production company. They're the ones that actually got behind it. She and Lucille Ball. If it wasn't for Lucille Ball, Star Trek would not be.
There'd be no Star Trek.
There would be no Star Trek.
Imagine that.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Desilu was the one that put a lot of the money behind the pilot of Star Trek, and it was Lucille Ball who really saw the vision. And they were looking for a show to kind of hang their hat on and stuff like that. And then the pilot just didn't do well, and they kind of canceled it. And they said, no, it was too. They called it too cerebral. It was too, there was not enough action for people, that type of thing. And then, but he tried it again. And keep in mind that initially Gene Roddenberry's first captains, initially he wanted William Shatner as the captain, but William Shatner wasn't available. So he ended up getting Jeffrey Hunter, who did Westerns and stuff like that. He did movies with John Wayne and stuff like that. Very good looking guy.
Yeah, he was actually in some of the big Westerns.
Yeah, he was. And so he was in the first one. And then eventually they tried it again, but this time he was able to snag William Shatner. And now the key to this is again, going back to Desilu. All these big networks didn't want to do this, and none of these entities didn't want to put the money up, and Desilu put up a load of money and gambled on it again, because again Lucy kept seeing this vision.
She saw potential. She saw something.
Yes, she saw absolute potential in this, and she put the money into the second pilot of Star Trek, which ends up being Where No Man Has Gone Before, starring William Shatner. And that's where, boom, it becomes a huge thing in 1967. And this is where you get the start of Star Trek.
Yeah. And the first, and this is the thing about Star Trek that's so brilliant, is that they managed to somehow, have Captain Pike, these first episodes and continue again, because there's so many stories to be told, and in the beginning, when Desilu they were looking at this, her being in the world of storytelling on television, you have to have a different story every single week.
Yeah.
And so she understood that you can't just have a story if the overall world isn't that interesting, right? And when you're doing a show like I Love Lucy, there's very limited things you can actually do on there, right? It's Lucy, it's Desi Arnaz, right, or Ricky, and it's the Merces from downstairs.
Mhm.
There's a couple of characters, a couple of celebrities sometimes make a, and it's usually her wanting to become a star and sing, and Ricky is getting upset, and then they have it's very difficult to continue that because that's the limit. But
Right.
Lucy, she was a genius. Lucille Ball
Yes.
was a genius, and she knew that not only can I see this, but I can see stories here.
Yes.
And when you feel stories can be told from this premise, from this idea, that's exciting to especially a production company
Right.
that knows that what, right off the bat, I can tell you 10 stories that they can do
Right.
right off the bat. We can just do 10 stories. And it reminds me, this is going to be a little bit of a weird comparison, but Gilligan's Island. Listen closely. Gilligan's Island, the idea of Gilligan's Island is as silly as you can come up with, right?
Yeah.
But the idea that you had the millionaire, the professor, Marianne, the captain, Gilligan, and the idea that you had these really diverse people from different sorts of on this island immediately gave the idea that you can tell a lot of stories from this.
Right.
And so when Gilligan's Island, which never happens, when they actually were picked up, there were 30 scripts already ready to go. Can you imagine going into a thing with 30 scripts? So they had it already because why? Because it lends itself to it. You
Yeah.
know, it's like shows that are very, very difficult to write for. You have to have brilliant writing. If like a show, I would give you an example. A show like Cheers, for instance, right?
Mm.
It's a bar. The characters are very, very diverse, but it's a bar,
Right.
right? So in a bar, you already know what's going to happen in the bar. Already off the bat, the stories have to be placed in a bar. You can't go
Right.
anywhere else but the bar. Why? The bar is called Cheers. The show is called Cheers. It's just a bar.
Right.
So what do you need in there? You need great actors. Check it off. They did it. You need amazing writing. They did that too. And that's
Yes.
why that was successful.
Right.
Another example is Taxi.
Mhm.
Taxi is taxi. It tells you in the title what it's about. It's
Right.
about people who drive taxis. Where are the stories? Well, now you have to have brilliant actors done,
Mhm.
and you have to have stories. You have to have some kind of great, and you have to have great writing, right? And the writing can be as simple as like, okay, Louis is wants to meet a girlfriend. He wants to, he hasn't. I just make up one, right? He hasn't seen this girl since high school, and she wants to meet with him. That's the story. Well,
Yeah.
right off the bat, we all know that we from watching the show. I mean, again, I'm dating anybody who doesn't know what that show is, but right off the bat, I already know that Louis is going to be nervous. He's going to go to Rieger. Rieger's going to try to help him. He's going to feel down on because he just works at a taxi place. He's going to feel embarrassed about it, and then they're going to all be and Ignatowski is going to be there. You know, well, boss, you're going to be fantastic, boss. He's going to love you, right? You're going to have all these different types of characters trying to support Louis, and he's going to be Louis,
Yeah.
and so already that's one episode that's done, and you could take any of these characters and take that same exact storyline and put it in there, but it's a taxi,
Right.
so the stories have to be within the taxi realm. It has to be in a world of where that goes on, right? Star Trek can do anything.
Yeah.
The stories, they can land on a planet that has a whole bunch of stuff going on that they can handle. They can go back in time. They can create other characters, and then you had Next Generation that had the holodeck where they can actually have whole scenarios of stories that they can
Right.
tell. So it was an infinite amount of being able to tell stories. And I think just going back to my original point was that Lucille Ball saw the possibility and the foundation for a tremendous amount of stories being told.
Yeah, I agree. And I think part of that, I think there's two elements to that as well. I think part of it was because it's space and because
Mhm.
it's the future, right? So now your canvas is absolutely open because you're talking about stuff that is just in the brain that doesn't even exist,
Right,
right? In a
right,
technical sense, right? As far as that, you know, these communicators and the beaming and the starships and all the this stuff doesn't even exist. So now
right,
you can tell stories infinitely because none of this stuff actually exists. That's
right.
the first thing, right? Second thing is I think again Lucy is also seeing. Remember, Lucy's a very powerful woman
Yes, at
in
that point,
Hollywood,
she
right?
was
Extremely
controlling.
powerful woman in Hollywood. She had literally had to argue with her board of directors of Desilu because the board of directors did not want to fund Star Trek, and
Right.
she went against them and said, "No, we are going to fund Star Trek," because she was the boss, and
Yeah.
she did it. And also, she saw the vision because again, Gene Roddenberry had a diverse cast. She saw women in
Yep.
powerful roles
Right.
in Star Trek. So of course, she's like, this guy has this vision of not only bringing all these people together, but also elevating women to really high
And she,
roles.
yeah,
And
and her,
she's in a high role.
yeah, and she's a woman, and
So
she actually had a
exactly,
tremendous amount of success, and uh,
absolutely,
number one show anywhere.
right,
Um, she was also, she was a Hollywood actress as well. I don't know if
yeah,
you've seen pictures of her when she was young. She was
yep,
stunning,
it's beautiful, yeah.
like unbelievable. She was with the Marx Brothers. She was in a Marx
Hmm.
Brothers movie, but yeah, so she already had this experience of going as a woman, being through, this whole thing, and she knew the importance of it. So let's break down a little bit of Star Trek. I want to kind of just go into the episodes, how
Hmm.
many episodes and how many different unless you have something specific
No,
that
no,
you
good,
have.
good.
So the original series, as we all know, had, well, now we all know, I say it like everybody knows. It has 79 episodes that were
Right,
the original series. With it was supposed to be a 5-year
mission,
mission, right? 5-year mission, which they changed later to a continuing mission because they only lasted 3 years.
right.
Um, and but that was 79 episodes. When you think about it, though, today's world, 3 seasons of a show is 30 episodes,
Yeah, yeah. In today's world, yes,
and 10 per season. That's
right.
it.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So this is 79. So we're lucky that we got 79 episodes. Then came right after that was the animated series. I don't know if do you know how many
Yes.
of those there were?
Oh, I don't remember.
So I was more than I thought, actually, surprisingly. It was 22 episodes of that.
Ah, 20. Okay, yeah, yeah.
That was really surprising. And then after that came Star Trek Next Generation, and that had a lot more. That had
But we're
well,
talking series now.
we're talking about the series,
Okay, just series. Okay,
just the series. Yeah, we're
okay.
not talking about the films. Yeah,
Yes, right,
yeah, no, the
right.
films that's a whole other conversation. So we're just talking about the TV
Yep,
show right now, the
yep.
TV series. So that was the Next Generation, was 178 episodes
But let's remember though that, and some a lot of people don't know that there was supposed to be a series prior to that.
prior to the Next Generation.
Correct.
Right.
So there was in production actually. It actually even started. There was supposed to be a new Star Trek series prior to the first movie, and there was a separate Vulcan that was cast. They already had the casting of a lot of the folks, and eventually at the last minute it got scrapped.
Right.
But the initial intention was to have a series, a second series, and that series ended up turning into what would be the first movie.
Right.
So it was in between the animated series and then the
And
first movie.
the first movie. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right, right. So yeah, that was, I think, because of the success of Space Odyssey,
Hmm.
Star Wars,
Right.
these kinds of things. Um, Battlestar Galactica,
That's right.
all these shows about space, Gilligan's Island. They realized, you know what, we should definitely have a show. We should actually do this again. You
Right.
know, and I think that's why they started doing that. And I think William Shatner was involved, right? He was being fitted. I heard.
I
Remember,
think he was. Yeah, I think he was. Yeah.
yeah, he was sort of like getting ready to go back and do this again. I know that I think Leonard Nimoy wasn't
No,
on board.
no, he wasn't. They had a different Vulcan.
They had a different Vulcan. It's funny. Things happen for a reason because I start thinking about that. That might have ended.
Yeah.
So we might not be doing any
Right.
conversations about this because if they would have gone back, the show would have not done well again, or whatever. They started a mission and it just doesn't really click.
Hmm.
Um, that would have been the end of it, and there would have been all the movies The Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock, all those things would not have happened. Or maybe they would have, but we don't know. I mean, I can't imagine Leonard Nimoy not being Spock,
I know.
even if they come back after the original 79 episodes.
Yeah.
Right now you and I would be talking about 79 episodes, and then the what I don't know, maybe the 30 episodes that if it gets that far without Spock. We be
Right.
talking about the episodes with Spock and without Spock.
Right.
Which one do we like the most? And that'd be the end of the conversation, and that'd be it.
But it was also the big thing was the demand of the people, right? Because
Right.
after the series was canceled, the convention started.
Correct.
And that's when they started to realize, because
Yeah.
at that time William Shatner it was living in a van, but at down by the river, but
Down the river.
but the conventions became huge. That's really what propelled it, because there was such a letter writing campaign. There was such an outcry from Star Trek fans who really wanted something, and that's when it started to develop.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring back a series. Then the series didn't work, and then the movie. So really, the fans at the end of the day, which were the people that absorb Star Trek, were the ones that kind of pushed it forward.
It's true. I think also there was a combination, I feel, because I know that the fans were, even at the beginning when it was first canceled, they were just outraged.
Yeah.
There were thousands of letters written.
Yes.
But, unfortunately, when there's money involved and it's like, well, we understand that group of thousands of people like it, but we can't afford thousands of people. We need millions of people, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And I think what happened was the dollar signs came in
Mhm.
from Star Wars. The dollar signs came in from Space Odyssey, from
Mhm.
Kubrick's film. So I think those things, in conjunction with the fact that they were getting ready to do that because of the fans and because it kind of propelled the idea. You know what? We should have a movie.
Yeah.
We should do a movie. But unfortunately, that first film took too much of the idea of Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
thought that it was trying to be it again, and it was a very slow paced film. Um, you know, and I think it was lucky that they were even able to get to do Star Trek. I think it did well enough. It did well enough that the Wrath of Khan was able to be made.
Right.
People were interested enough. So, all right. So Next Generation had 178 episodes.
Mhm.
Deep Space Nine, very surprising. It had 176 episodes.
Look at that.
So that was two. Now Voyager, Star Trek Voyager. Do I have to say Star Trek at the beginning of everything? Star Trek Voyager.
And that's what it's called.
Yeah, but if I say so in Voyager, wait, what's Voyager? Is that about a ship? Is that about what is that Voyager about? Is that like a cruise ship or something? So Star Trek Voyager was 172 episodes. Enterprise.
It's getting less and less.
Star Trek Enterprise. Oh yeah, it is. It's definitely going there. But the films have overshot. Did way. The Star Trek Enterprise had 98 episodes. Discovery, which I got into the first season because it is Star Trek, and then I watched it, but did not really enjoy it as much. And by the way, on this show, we're not going to love everything Star Trek. We're going to say the things that we do not like.
Correct.
And because we are fans of the actual franchise and of the vision that Gene Roddenberry had in the 60s. That was our fandom comes from being a fan of that initial spark, right? Um, Star Trek Picard had only 30 episodes, but man,
Man.
that final third season, you can skip the second season because they went woke on it and it was
Yeah.
garbage, in my opinion. Not all of it, but a good portion of it really had. They just, I don't know what they were doing. They realized it,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
kudos to them. They realized that, oh wait, nobody's watching. Everybody hates this. Why? Because it makes no sense. So they went back to the drawing board and they actually started season 3, Picard, with just the most amazing series. And I think that that last episode of Picard is probably my favorite. The last 2 episodes, I should say, my favorite Star Trek in of all the Star Trek TV shows. I think that one
Wow.
was, to me, unbelievable. I mean, I
And
love
that,
all the episodes, and there's some Next Generation ones, Picard with the Borg and those kind of things. And Deep Space Nine is my favorite series. It's like I love it. But those 2 episodes, maybe the last 3, to be fair to the ending of Picard, man, that was amazing.
well, that's what happens when you, like you said, when they realize, okay, we went the wrong direction on the second one. And then you bring in a guy who is not only a
So,
huge Star Trek fan, who that's Terry Matalas, but he worked on a lot of the series. He worked on Voyager, he worked on Enterprise and stuff, and he worked his way up in that to become a big director. And then they give him the franchise and they say, okay, you're going to do the third one. And he absolutely blows it.
he
I mean,
knows
just,
he knew exactly what the fans wanted,
yes,
and he gave it to them. It's
yes.
like, we know. It's like, why are you messing around?
Yep,
Why are you
absolutely.
trying to bring in things that don't matter, that are stupid ideologies and stupid
Right,
garbage that has nothing to do with the show? You can go
exactly.
make your own space show about whatever the hell you want, but
Yep,
don't mess up the franchise.
right.
And I think when he came in, he wiped this. That second season has disappeared. Nobody cares about it. And now that third season has been revered as like one of the greatest seasons. And those last few episodes, man, if you have not watched Star Trek Picard, watch that first season because it's exciting to see him develop again and kind of
Right.
have his life after the Enterprise and all that. And then watch that third up. You can skip for the second season. Just watch one of the movies or something. Watch one of the films. Um, the next one is Star Trek Lower Decks.
Lower Decks. Yep.
Lower Deck. How many episodes do you think Lower Decks had?
Didn't it?
This surprised me.
It had. I don't remember how many even seasons because I didn't really watch Lower Decks much. I've seen a
Yeah,
few,
yeah.
but
I've seen a few too. So this was 50 episodes.
really,
Which
I was going
I
to say I thought like 75 or something
Oh,
like that.
really?
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
thought a lot less than 50.
really.
How about Star Trek Prodigy?
I never watched it.
Yeah, 40 episodes.
40 episodes.
40 episodes. I don't even know where you would watch that nowadays. Discovery,
No, is that Paramount?
Paramount again?
Yeah.
Paramount. Those guys. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is
Worlds.
the one that's still currently
It's still currently on.
Yeah, it's still on, and that's at 30 episodes so far,
Yeah.
which I guess would be about 3
It's
seasons,
about
right?
yeah. It's
Yeah,
about
so
10,
they
10.
do about 10 per season. So those are, and all together we have 940 episodes since 1967 of just a television series,
Wow.
just what's on television, and not to mention all the spin-offs, the fan films, and some of them are actually pretty good, believe it or not. The Vic
Star Trek continues.
continues with Vic. What's
Vic Mignogna.
Mignogna. He was on our show. It was great to chat with him.
Yep.
He did that series. I think he ended. It was Star Trek Continues. So he basically, since Star Trek only went 3 seasons, but they were supposed to go 5, he kind of bookmarked them, and he played Captain Kirk very convincingly.
Yeah, he did
When
such a
you're watching
great
it, he
job.
did
But
such a great
he
job.
made it Star Trek. I
He
mean,
made it
he
so
didn't try to do
no.
something that was completely different. He
He's
actually,
from the sound effects, from
yes,
set,
everything.
from the
Yes.
costumes, from the way it was shot,
Yeah.
the angles that they used
Yep.
at that period of time, the lighting.
Right.
The lighting to me was the most impressive
Yes.
because the lighting from 1960 on a TV show on a set is completely different than what you can get today. You can get much better lighting.
That's
So
right.
you would think that the idea is like, well, let's get the best quality. No, let's match the lighting. Let's not mess with that. You know, that he did such a great job. So I want to definitely have him on again. I hope he'll
Yeah.
come back on again and we'll talk more about it. Yeah, it's such a great series as well. And then the movies, the films were a whole other world, and I'd like to cover that at some point also. If you want to talk a little bit about some of the films, we can talk about that. We're going to talk about the films individually, and we're
Right.
going to break down the scenes. We're going to break down technology of the time. You know, we're going to break down how things were not AI.
Yeah.
You know, things were really shot. You know, and that's going to be a lot of fun to do that.
Yeah. The films, I mean, the films and were amazing. Again, so we have the first one. Again, we talked a little bit about the series that wasn't, and then the series ends up becoming a film. Like John said, you know, where they were competing with Space Odyssey and all those things.
Mhm.
So, and Star Wars and stuff like that. So now we have Star Trek: The Motion Picture that starts off, and that movie was direct. You know, everybody had high hopes for it because they were able to get Robert Wise, who directed The Sound of Music.
Right.
And, you know, so they figured, okay, you know, there's a big time guy here who's going to take Star Trek. The problem is you, it didn't work, in my opinion. I mean, there was some bright spots to it, but to me, it didn't work. It didn't have the chemistry that you
Right.
would normally see. I think some of the characters were a little forced on it or whatever. But you know, again, a lot of people ran to see it just because it was Star Trek.
Right.
You know, and then the one, you know, so there you have that, and then you have, you know, the Wrath of Khan. To me,
Mhm.
again, I talked a little bit about it. The Wrath of Khan is what cemented Star Trek for me.
Yep.
To me, I think it's not only the still number one Star Trek film, and there's what, 13 films altogether. I think we're at.
13, yep.
Um, but to me, it's one of the best sci-fi films
Mhm.
of all time, in my opinion. And of course, sci-fi really doesn't get a lot in terms of awards. So I think Star Trek maybe, I think, won an award for either sound effects editing or something, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
But you know, to me, that film could have won an Academy Award in many areas.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
One of the things that also, you know, we talk about, because it's obviously always going to be about the numbers, you know,
right,
like how much a movie generates, you know, how
right,
much it in the box office and stuff. And um, the idea that Star Trek is not making money or whatever, you know, it's making way more money today than it did back. You know, now I know that money is different, but ticket sales and people going to see and box office numbers still matter today. You know, and back in 1980 when the first film came out, or 81, that was 80, it was 79 or
70,
80.
79.
79. So back then it was still, but think about this. I'm going to go over some of the box office numbers a little bit on Star Trek, right? And so if we get the first picture, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, 1979, made worldwide, and this was really impressive. And this actually surprised me when I saw it because for some reason, I just had in my brain, I thought, well, Wrath of Khan must have beaten everything,
Right,
but it did not.
right.
Even though I think it's the best,
Yeah.
it did not. So, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, 1979, grossed $139 million worldwide,
Hmm.
and that came from the fact that uh, at the time, Space Odyssey, Star Wars, TV show, you know, it was a space economy back then,
Yeah.
right? We were all into space. We had just got out of the cowboys, right? And now we're into space. And so that propelled that film. Even though we've always said it's a little slower and it's not as action packed or anything, whatever, but it had its. So the people that went to go see it were not only Star Trek fans,
Mhm.
they were space fans. There were people that were also inspired by the fact that the theaters were really pushing a lot of a lot of space stuff, right?
Mhm.
So you get um then you have the Wrath of Khan, which came in '82,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking, well, Wrath of Khan must have doubled that, it. And Wrath of Khan made $95 million,
Look at that.
95.8 million worldwide, which I thought, wow, that does not make sense. But here's how I think it did make sense, and it was a very successful box office film, even though it didn't go back then. Because back then in '79, again, I'll say it again, we had Space Odyssey, we had Star Wars. Everybody was going to the films because space was the thing. So we
Right.
had a lot of people watching it that paid money that were not Star Trek fans,
Right. Correct.
or they knew the show, they knew of it. It's on the movie. They weren't really going as huge fans. They were going as moviegoers that liked space stuff.
Right.
That was popular back then. Now come to 82. Now we have the real diehard Star Trek fans, the ones that were made when that first film came out,
Yeah.
the ones that were fans from the original series.
Right.
They that all kind of came in, and not to mention the fact that there was a lot of attention on Star Trek again because the TV show started airing regularly on television every single night
Right.
on different networks, and it was syndicated. And because it was the syndication is back then is was so huge,
Mhm.
it gets put onto all the channels all across the country, all over the world. Actually, I mean, it's dubbed in like all these different languages. So that also, so the 95 million are Star Trek fans, in my opinion. They're Star Trek fans, and then they're moviegoers that go see it. But at the same time, I feel like those 95 million were the real, true core fans that really loved Star Trek. Now, the ending, spoiler alert, 40, 40 something years, 45 years later. But if you don't want to know about the ending of that movie, but the ending was a real tough one for a lot of people, for
Yes.
the Wrath of Khan. And it reflects on the next one, which was, you have something to say?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say also, when you look at the history of sequels,
Yes.
right? The
In
concept,
general.
the concept, even though Star Trek is technically kind of a proven brand at the time,
Yeah.
but there was no movie, right?
No
This is the
movie.
first time you have this brand in movie form.
Correct.
So I think also just, you're going to see people run out and see it because it's the first of its kind in the movie,
Correct.
right? Just like you said, those people who are not necessarily Star Trek fans, but they're just going to go see it because it's a space thing too, right? Then now, here's the thing, also another way to look at it. A lot of people came out of that movie disappointed because they were saying, "Oh, okay, it was So even maybe some Star Trek fans also were like, "Well, I'm not going to go see it again." So Star Trek Search for Spock, Wrath of Khan comes out. A lot of people probably didn't go because they just have
Yeah.
a bad taste in their mouth from the first one,
Correct.
right? So it dips.
That's a good. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
right. So I'm thinking, right? But then I'm thinking, okay, and I don't know the numbers on this. I'm sure you're going to tell me this, and this is just my guess. I'm thinking the success of 2 with that ending, 3 should actually come back and do better. Am I right?
Nope.
No.
I know. I know. I think the same
Interesting.
thing, especially the fact that the way it ended, right? You would
Right.
think that it's called The Search for Spock,
Mhm.
that everybody's going to go see it,
Right.
right? Well, 87 million worldwide.
Wow. Interesting.
87 million worldwide. So I don't know if so many people were. I can't imagine anybody seeing Wrath of Khan and being disappointed just as a film itself. but again, I'm biased because I love the film and I think it's one of the best films. But um, I'm this number very much surprised me with the search. The fact that it was so low.
It is
And I
surprising.
did verify these again. I
Yeah.
did. Uh, um, and that's what it was.
And
I
maybe
could do a bigger
maybe
search.
maybe you're right though. Maybe you're right in the fact that that it's really kind of siloed down into the Star Trek fans at that point.
I think at that point, the 90, what was it again? The
95 million or
95 million compared to the 87 million. The 95 were the fans that came in from the first one,
right.
and came in there. And of course, the diehard fans. And then the 87 were just the diehard fans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Majority of them were just a diehard fan, which
I could see that.
$87 million is pretty good for a film back in 1984, whatever it
Right.
is.
Right.
So that's kind of like how I think what happened. Now here's an interesting thing: Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. What do you think? What do you? So think about it the way we were thinking about this, right? It's now coming back. We already know Wrath of Khan did 95 million. People liked it. Star Trek fans really loved it, right? The ending was brutal,
Right.
right? And then Star Trek 3 comes out, Search for Spock. Spock is found. He's brought back. His consciousness is actually, put back into him. And that ending, that really made you really, what's going to happen next? It's like
Right.
we know something is coming.
Right.
We know this is not the end at the end of a Search for Spock. The way they shot it, it just makes you feel like this is the beginning of
Yes.
something, right?
Yes.
So what would you think? Star Trek 4.
And the fact that, to me, back then, trailers were like 2 to 3 minutes long.
Right, they
Okay?
were good.
Where trailers now are 10 seconds.
Right.
Back then, trailers themselves were a big deal. I mean, when you
Yeah.
would watch and they would show all the scenes and to pique that interest, right?
Yeah.
So I would think that it would have probably, again, I would think that would have probably either be on par or even higher at the 80s or 90s, maybe. I would say 90 million or something like that. I don't
So
know.
check this out. $133 million.
Wow.
The Voyage Home. Isn't
Look
that
at that.
that it's so wild to me? And I think part of the reason for that was the fact that ending,
Yeah.
people that went to go see Star Trek 2 were, they liked the film, but man, Spock died. And then didn't go see Star Trek 3 because the Search for Spock, wait, what? He's coming back? I don't get it. They
Yeah.
probably missed it.
Yeah.
They were probably disgruntled. They're not Star Trek fans, but they're movie fans.
Right.
But then the ending starts getting out. People started word of mouth.
Yes.
Spock is back, and then the Voyage Home is like, oh, what is this all about?
Yeah.
And I think, and then also we're looking at a period, and this was
86, right?
yeah, this was 86. So remember, what other film had to do with time travel and coming back that was out around this time that was massively successful?
I don't remember.
Back to the Future.
Oh, of course. Back to the
So
Future.
Back to the Future was huge.
That's right.
So Back to the Future, the Voyage Home.
Yeah.
People see. Remember, and you nailed it when you said the trailer. The
Yes.
trailer had Captain Kirk and Spock in San Francisco,
Yes.
present time of
Right.
1986.
Right.
So that alone got people and getting kicked out of a bus.
Yeah.
Double. What is it?
A double dumbass on you.
Double dumbass on you. What does that mean? That kind of
Yeah.
thing. And they showed those kind of clips and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I think that really, and then the marketing was done really, really well. The film was actually just I think it was one of the better ones too. It was
Yep.
fun.
I agree.
It also had a thing about saving the whales, and
Yep.
had to do with the ecosystem. It had to
Hmm.
do with nature and wildlife and all that. And I think that was another thing that was really big back then, because remember back then it was the ozone layer was going to kill us in 10 years.
Right. That's right.
This was expired because the acid rain that was going to kill us 10 years prior
Yep.
had expired. So they needed a new thing. So this film was based, was connected to all that. And so that was 133 million.
Wow. Interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Now here is the tragedy. We're gonna go, we're doing them all the way.
Oh my God.
Here's the tragedy of so here's Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, $133 million
And
worldwide.
another thing, just about that, to piggyback on that, you didn't have to be a Star Trek fan to enjoy it. That film could
That's
be
a standalone film.
is a standalone film,
Yeah.
just a fun time travel film of how you
Yep.
get home and all this. So, and I think that's what made it great too. So now people are expecting, because remember, that was the first film of all of them that was lighthearted, that had
It was
comedy.
lighthearted, and it was the only standalone film.
Correct. So
Because
it had both the
Restaurant was back in
standalone,
the series.
right, the standalone and the lightheartedness, the comedy and the writing was fantastic.
Yep.
So you're thinking, okay, this could translate into the fifth film. Now we have William Shatner involved in writing this film.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, by the
And-
way, I have to say, William Shatner is an amazing writer.
Okay. Yes.
He's written
Yeah.
novels. He's written his own Star Trek novels.
Right.
And has done and is praised because he's the guy. He lives it. He knows the scripts. He knows the lingo. So he's written some great things. Now, I think there wasn't a lot of money, which really surprised me.
There wasn't,
that
correct.
They would take 100, but this is Hollywood and their selfishness. $133 million that this film, you would think the next one they're going to put some more money into it to get that 133 to $200 million. Right. But they, for some reason, had a very, very limited budget.
They did.
On shooting everything. And I think William Shatner was, unfortunately, the victim of maybe a great idea, a great concept of what he wanted to do and what he wanted to write, but unfortunately did not have the meat of the effects and all the the technology behind them, is my opinion.
Yeah, he tells the story. He tells the story of that in one of his memoirs. I have a lot of them, and one of them was about the television shows, and one was about the movies. And he talks about that, and that's exactly what he says.
Yeah,
he says he was handcuffed with budget. He actually talks about the ideas that he had for the film, and even the alternate ending that he had for the film that they could not do.
Yeah,
and so he had to kind of stitch things together. And make it something that it really shouldn't have been.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because he's the guy. You would think they want to support him, but again, the industry has no emotion. And it's not one thing. Like people call it the industry. Like no, it's a lot of people that are dumb. For the most part, a lot of them are executives. The filmmakers and the actors are the brilliant ones.
That's right.
The writers are the brilliant ones. And then there's these people that kind of linger around up on the top. People call them the suits or whatever they want to call them. Mm-hmm. And they sort of make decisions based on just what they think. And for the most part, a lot of them are not good. And they're not really that smart because they don't make movies. So they don't understand films. And unfortunately, he was the, he was definitely fell into that trap and just was not given that opportunity. So that film made $4. No, that film made $70 million. So when you think about it, like almost half. They went from, and this was in '89, so it was 3 years later. I think it should have been maybe '88. and had if it was 88 and a little bit more money behind it, it would have been more successful in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I agree.
So and now we're on to Star Trek 6, and now let's go back and figure out when did the Next Generation start.
Next Generation started in 87.
Right. So now we're in the midst of, let's look at where we are. The reason the Next Generation really became a reality was because Voyager, the Voyage Home, I'm sorry, Star Trek, the Voyage Home was so successful.
Right.
So it's a lot easier for a network to look at $133 million at the box office and say, yeah, let's reboot it with new people and Star Trek Next Generation, right?
Right.
And let's have I think it was DeForest Kelly, right? He played a character and sort of like was sort of launched them and the approval. And remember, Gene Roddenberry was still alive, so Gene Roddenberry was also involved as well.
Right.
That's a whole other conversation that we'll have about those first two seasons, the first two seasons of Star Trek Next Generation, which we'll go into that in future episodes. But so this is where we are in the world of Star Trek right now, right? So the next film is going to have a little bit more excitement behind it. There's going to be new people. They're going to be revitalized Star Trek fans that really enjoy the fact that Star Trek Next Generation is here.
Yeah.
There's going to be more people now. Another thing that is also popular back then is like, what was at home that was not at home 10 years earlier that we can watch movies on?
Oh, you're talking about like the VHS and stuff?
VHS.
Yeah.
There was no VHSs back in 79.
Right.
Or maybe they were, but it was, you had to have money.
Yes.
Our first VHS was bought by my stepdad. It was
like $500. Yeah.
$500.
Yes, I was telling Jordan that the other day.
Yeah, $500. I mean, you can. It's ridiculous, right? So there, so this is the era of selling VHS tapes, and then the renting started coming up, and people started renting them. So now you could actually rent. You can go back now and watch Wrath of Khan, Space, Search for Spock, and of course 4. So now moving into 6, think of all the momentum that we have now. We have VHS at home, so people are more watching it. We have syndication has been going strong at this point.
Right.
I was watching it every night. I was watching Star Trek, the original 79. And also we have now the Next Generation is on brand new, new series. So there's a lot of talk of Star Trek. So now we're moving into Star Trek, The Undiscovered Country. Go ahead.
And it's billed as the final voyage of the Starship Enterprise and the original crew.
Correct. That was a lie. Well, it kind of was.
It was as it was constituted at the time.
Correct. So that came out in 91, and that grossed $96 million. And 96.9 to be exact. But that was again, over $26 million from the last one.
Right.
When a film does better, it's stands the reason that they're gonna look to try to make that again.
Right.
And now we're getting into
Next Generation.
Generations. So Star Trek Generations came out in 94.
Right. And
that did really well. Why did it do well in 94? Well, how many years has the Next Generation been on the air? Now, this is actually and this is actually an amazing thing, because TV shows that are currently on the air generally don't have films that are in the theater
at the same time.
People have to go pay money to see, when you can see them weekly.
Correct.
On the what year did Generation end? I don't know.
It was around 94. It was literally 94. Like coincided with that.
So it's crazy that people would do that, but it was so well executed and so well planned. It like left people really wanting more. And so by the time this film comes out in 94, it grossed $118 million. So that was really, really great.
And also now, keep in mind that it is billed as the
The last,
passing
you keep saying it, as the last,
as the final voyage. No, it is billed as the passing of the torch
right?
from the old series to the new series, because Captain Kirk was in that film
Correct.
with Captain Picard.
Right. It was a major, major, major moment in Star
Right.
Trek history, and to see Captain Kirk
I am such a nerd.
and Picard. Oh, we are just so nerds. We are just the biggest nerds. But when you see them
Yeah.
both on screen together, it's just like
Yeah.
joyous, right? It's like freaking awesome. And it's anyway. Okay, so we're going Star Trek. First Contact comes afterwards, 96. So tell us a little bit about that one, George.
Brilliant.
Unbelievable.
Brilliant. It was this one to me is probably number 2 behind Wrath of Khan.
Wrath
in
of
my
Khan, yeah,
opinion.
I agree.
So now we're building on the success of the Next Generation, not only the show, but now we have the first movie. But now this movie again stands on its own as the Next Generation cast, their first adventure. But what's great about this is because number one, it was directed by Jonathan Frakes.
Right.
I don't remember, was it written by him? Well, I don't think it was written by him, but I know it was directed by him.
Right.
Then it became dark. So the first movie was a lot more of a lighthearted, even though there was adventure and stuff.
Yeah.
This one completely turned dark because
this one
now
go ahead.
No, and you know what? I just thought of something. The 2 best Star Trek films, I don't know why I just thought of this. The 2 best Star Trek films, in my opinion, they were both dark, and they both brought back a villain that was probably the most incredible villain of those times.
Correct. I agree 100%. Not only that, but here's another thing that I thought of. During that period of time, the Next Generation went into syndication already.
Right.
So now the success of the film, the success of Voyage Home,
yes,
all that stuff is now we're living in Star Trek at the peak.
Yes.
So any film that comes out now is now being looked at as a really important IP for the studios, for whatever the studio is. It is now going to be, they're going to care about it. And I think the one thing that I love about, you said was dark. It is dark, and it kind of it gives me an idea of Deep Space Nine, because Deep Space Nine is a darker series overall.
Yes. True.
It is just a darker series, and I think that it had a little bit of that whole combination. Now, Deep Space Nine was also out around this time as well. It was coming out around this time.
Yes.
And so there was this idea that Star Trek is not just, one thing. Star Trek is also Captain Kirk. I mean, it's not just Captain Kirk and Spock. It's also this world that can be dark. It can be funny. It can be light. It can be very introspective. It can be very connected to reality. It can be, topical, and it has all these elements to it. So when First Contact comes in, it is just taking the world by storm, and it grossed $146 million worldwide.
Yeah, I could see that.
And so that beat all the other films.
Yep.
139 was the first one, and that does extremely well. Now the next one, we're going to 1998, which was in Insurrection.
Yeah.
Star Trek Insurrection, in case anybody's wondering.
I just watched that like 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was on, so I just started watching it.
Yeah. Yes, we still watch these. And tell us a little bit about that one. I really
again,
it had its challenges.
Yeah, it did have its challenges. I think that they kind of lost it a little bit in the story and in what they were trying to do. Again, it still
go ahead.
Again.
I was going to say, I think that they thought that having the Star Trek world was enough.
Yes, correct.
You know what I mean? Having the stuff, and they don't realize that Star Trek is 90% story
Right.
and 10% of the stuff. It's story,
Right.
it's character driven. It's
Yes.
based in there first, and
Right.
then the rest of it is the Star Trek world.
Yes. Yeah, I think they just I think they kind of lost it a little bit. I think the characters, the villains, and this is part of the problem I think that they had. They were going from the Borg, who
Right.
was the deep, dark,
Yeah. And
villain that is like almost impossible to kill. That like you literally when you're watching that movie for the first time, your heart's pumping
yeah, you're like,
because
how are they
it's
gonna do this?
crazy. To these now other villains who are like
They were
just not they
just kind
didn't
of fun
have
people.
yeah. I mean, great actors, F. Murray Abraham,
Oh yeah, yeah.
great actor and stuff like that, but it just didn't have that same punch
Agreed.
as the previous movie.
Agreed. The next one after that we have Nemesis.
Nemesis. Again, another one that I think had an interesting idea
Yeah.
with the fact of a cloned kind of
Well,
Captain
let me give you
Picard.
first the
Oh
insurrection.
yeah, good.
$112 million. Still over $100 million film.
Yeah.
Not too bad. But then Nemesis. Whoa.
Nemesis. Again, yeah, trying to come up with something very different, and I think they did miss the mark. Now, the movie itself, I think, was more action packed in terms of they tried to kind of make it a little more Star Trek 2 Wrath of Khan,
Right.
ships battling each other,
Yeah.
space fight, all that type of stuff kind of thing. But again, story
And
wise,
they didn't have the story in
yeah,
there.
it just lost me.
Yeah, yeah.
Lost me.
I it's even though it's a world and you want every film to stand alone, you realize that it is a world that we understand, that if somebody is talking about a certain thing, the we know what they're talking about, right?
Right. Right.
And so when you come in and you have a story that only reflects those separate things that are out there and are not bringing something new into the mix, maybe based on those things, maybe there's if you have a space station that's being attacked, or a space station that was overtaken by somebody, and then they have to go, but that's the world.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
Yeah.
world. It's nothing completely new. And I think with Nemesis and even Insurrection, I think those two were sort of like, yeah, these could be episodes.
Yeah.
These
Correct.
could be episodes.
Correct.
When you're talking about a film, it has to be greater than life.
That's
And
right.
when they created the Borg, that was unbelievable. I mean, and Wrath of Khan was because this guy was a superhuman guy that was in the original series,
Right.
that had it out for Kirk. He
That's right.
hated Kirk. So we already knew this as fans. So that's
Yes.
why it was so big, and the Voyage Home again was lighter. It was more fun. It was just a fun film. But when you have the world again, and Voyage Home was not in the world; they were in current world, right?
Right. Yes.
1986 world, and
Yes.
that made it fun. That
Yes.
made it fun for people to see that. But when you're these two films were sort of like, they said they had a script for an episode, or maybe a two-parter episode that kind of got turned into a film.
Right.
And that's just how I feel about those two.
No,
Now
I
we're
agree.
getting into Star Trek, the different time. I don't know
The
what was
Kelvin timeline.
yeah, the Kelvin timeline, which
So
the first one, personally, I thought the first one was good. I did like it. I
I
think
did
it had
too.
good action stuff in
And
it.
again, I think it could have been a one and done in my opinion.
It could have been. They didn't have to go
I
there, but
didn't
it was
now.
well promoted, though.
Yes, it was well promoted. I think you had very good actors, Chris Pine.
Yeah. Oh, by the
Um,
way, Nemesis, $67 million.
wow,
Yeah,
wow, look at that.
half of Insurrection. I mean, that's probably what happened. That they went, because that was 2002, and
Yeah,
then Star Trek was 2009.
yeah,
The
the
Kelvin,
reboot.
the reboot, 2009. So they went, a good amount of time, before they start again.
I remember. It's funny. I remember when there was talk about the whole J.J. Abrams thing about Star Trek coming back doing a reboot, and they were saying this was going to be a kind of a prequel to show how Spock met Kirk.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's fantastic. I would love to see that. But again, thinking that it was going to follow
The
canon,
regular.
right? That it was going to follow along,
Yeah.
where I didn't know they were going to actually completely change it and make a whole new timeline,
Right.
which is what they did. Now, again, they're also now. This is 2009. Now, the society has changed now. Now we have social media. Now everything is fast. The films are fast and furious now.
Yep.
So now our
Social
attention
media,
span
2009 is still fairly new.
it's still fairly new, but what I'm
It's 2 years old.
right, but what I'm trying to say is that our
The
attention
world,
now has
right?
changed. So
Correct.
now you bring out a Star Trek 1 or 2 now, nobody's going to see it because it doesn't.
Right.
People don't have that attention span. Now people need to the point, fast. So J.J. Abrams now says, okay, I can bring Star Trek to this generation now, make it hip, make it fun, make it fast, which is what it is.
Yeah.
And maybe bring a whole new generation of Star Trek fans. I think
and I think that was the plan.
Right.
And you know, it took 7 years to get to this, and I think that in those 7 years they were trying to figure out, well, how can we get this IP back up again? You know, with the in Insurrection and Nemesis being such Insurrection. I mean, it did over $100 million, which is not bad, but in comparison to the previous one, not as good. And then and then Nemesis just tanked.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that was, they held on to the IP and they tried to figure out how they're going to reboot it, and that's why it was a reboot basically. You know, and that's why they went back to the drawing board, so to speak. You know, now I think what's his name, Chris Pine.
Chris Pine.
You know, I think he did a great job.
He did
because he did not try to imitate Kirk.
Right.
You know, which would be a huge mistake.
Correct.
You know, and two, I think that the characters that were chosen were really great in those roles. You know, they were really great. They filled, and I think the first one did. You know, and it was also marketed tremendously well.
Yes.
You know, they did such a good marketing job on it. They had money behind it. You know, and I think that was part of the success of it. And to give you some of the numbers on that, and we'll wrap up here because we've been going a little bit long here, but this show is going to be a lot longer now, folks, just so you guys know. So Star Trek 2009, the reboot, made $385 million.
Look at that.
So it almost, the last 3 films, it almost made more than the last 3 films.
Wow.
Put together. You know.
Incredible.
Now we're going into Star Trek Into Darkness. That came out in 2013. Again, we're still on this timeline.
Where you have Khan again.
Yep.
Where there's some aspects of, you know, when you watch the film, you have the guy, you know, playing Khan who's completely different. They try to kind of make it, especially towards the end, a little bit of Wrath of Khan-ish. You know, there's some aspects of
exactly like Wrath of Khan.
They kind of try to build on that piece. Again, fast, action oriented, you know, that type of thing. You're seeing the characters do things that you wouldn't normally see.
Here's my problem with it, is that now you've proven to me that you're not thinking anymore.
Right.
That you're just taking what was, because even if you didn't like it, Wrath of Khan was an original thing and was taken from the show. It made sense. It was ended.
Right.
Search for Spock was part of the Wrath of Khan.
Right.
The Voyage Home was its own thing.
Yes.
Right. Now the Voyage Home leads into 5, which was, which 5 was 5. Everything, whether you liked it or not, Voyage Home was a creative thing. It was an original idea.
Right.
Whether you liked 5 or not, doesn't matter. It was an original idea brought to you, you know, whether it did well or not, whatever happened. You know, and now you have $385 million that you just got. Why not get some great writers or bring in some people from the actual show that were there, that are still around, and bring them to the table? Maybe they did. I don't know if they did or they didn't. I can't imagine these guys saying, hey, let's bring back Khan a completely different character.
I know. Yeah.
Can't imagine that happening, but if it did, okay, show me the proof in the comments below. Let me know that we're wrong about that. It's fine. Um, to me, it just showed that the effort was not there anymore. It was sort of like, let's grab this money, let's get out of here, you
Yep.
know.
Agreed.
And money they did grab.
Yes,
That
they
one,
did.
because of the success of the reboot, that one made $467 million.
Wow.
Now, what happened was exactly what I'm just saying. People are not dumb. They saw that they just, or especially Star Trek fans, right? Now,
Mhm.
remember, we'll also, we have to take into account the cost of films to go to a film
Right.
back in 1981,
Yeah.
1982, 19, all the, in the 80s was completely different than 2013. So a ticket costs more money. So the fact that they say box office, if you relate it, if you go to the money of, if you, how many actual people paid for the tickets, those numbers are a lot more interesting to look at.
Right.
And that's something that we can break. We will break those down as well in the
Absolutely.
future. So, and that one, yeah, well, I said Into the Darkness, 467. So what ends up happening? Star Trek Beyond, which was the last Star Trek film in the theaters made, which is now 10 years ago, because we're in 2026, and this was 2016. It made $343 million. So less than the
Yeah.
reboots, by a good 50 million, less than the reboot. And you know that's where it stands right now. Star Trek Beyond was the last Star Trek film in the theaters. Are we gonna
And
have another one?
and just yeah, and just so you know, they just recently um said they have made the decision to pull the plug on the Kelvin timeline. So they are not
They're not
coming
going
out
back.
with the much anticipated Star Trek 4. And of course, again, you have these actors now who are bigger and bigger and bigger the more movies they're doing, because they're not just doing Star Trek movies, they're doing other movies as well.
And Chris
So
Pine became
ex-
a
e-
huge.
he's huge, yeah. And Zoe Saldana and all these people, they're all huge now, right?
Yeah.
So they're going
So
to
they got
demand more money.
yeah.
So there's going to be a lot. So they've killed that concept. So there's no Star Trek 4. However, there will be a Star Trek film at some point, they're saying, because they already have two people who are, you're talking about another maybe 2 years down the line, but they're looking at it as a completely separate thing in the Star Trek universe, but it's not going to be part of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the IP is still valuable and there's
Yeah.
still a lot of juice in it. And I think that if you get fans involved, maybe, there are fans out there, by the way, that are so involved in the Star Trek universe, that you can probably bring them to the table and they'll give you 10 stories that will be just unbelievable,
Right.
that they know fans are going to like because they're part of it.
Right. Right.
So I think that that's something that if they were to do that, I think they would be very successful um, in bringing back the regular timeline and figuring out a way of bringing back that energy that we had back then. And I think
Exactly.
that's something. But for the time being, we have right now Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Yep.
That's what's out right now. Of course, as always, you can watch all the series on Paramount, and you can watch all the episodes of pretty much everything that's Star Trek on Paramount. I'm not sure if Prodigy is on there, but I think it is. It should be all on there.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, Paramount's got nothing to lose there.
Exactly.
They're dying. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is our first episode back again, doing something that we like to do. We hope you enjoyed this. This was basically just a rundown of some of the shows, some of the box office stuff. It wasn't really breaking down an episode or going in, as we're going to do next week. We'll talk about one of the films and we'll break it down. And George and I are in different places in our lives as well. From when we first started watching Star Trek, we're musicians. We've got into, and George has got into wellness and music as well. I've got into film. So we're coming from different perspectives on our evaluation, I guess, and reviews. And our comments are going to be a little bit different. We're also parents as well, so that is also a different brings a different perspective to the to what some of these episodes mean. And so we're going to bring all that to you, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you. This is really what George and I like to. This is what George and I used to do, sitting at the church, the Holy Cross Church. We'd sit at the steps and we would watch people and talk about Star Trek and talk about Bob Ross and talk about whatever else, Jan Can Cook and Jeff Smith, the Frugal Gourmet. Just we would just have to, because we were and are your geeks.
Yeah.
We are nerds, we are geeks, and we love every minute of it. So we appreciate you being here. We love you very much. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you all again next week. Take care of yourselves. God bless you all. And Happy New Year, by the way.
Yes.
Happy New Year to everybody. We will see you all. God bless you. And as always, peace.